Welcome back to Healthy Little Moments. I'm Dorota, and I'm so happy that you're here. It's been a little while since we recorded. I feel like I've said that before on a previous podcast, but we have been working on a lot behind the scenes. On our blog, we did a complete website redesign. So if you haven't visited the site in a while, I'd love for you to check it out. We're also sharing a lot of updates, recipes, wellness ideas in the newsletter. It's only a once a month newsletter, so we don't spam you. So make sure that you sign up. All of the links are below on whatever platform that you're streaming on, whether it's YouTube or Spotify. Today's episode is special because I'm here with my really good friend, Sara from ModGirlStyle. Sara and I actually met through a blogging syndicate group. And even though we've never met in person, which is kind of crazy because we talk almost every single day through voice notes, I think I have 500 voice notes back and forth from each other. So what started as this blogging support group turned into a really cool friendship, which makes today's conversation that much more meaningful. We are going to be talking about adult friendships, making new friends, outgrowing friendships, friendship breakups, and how to know when it's time to let go and make room in your life for some healthier connections. Sara, before we get into it, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell everyone a little bit about you, about ModGirlStyle, why you decided to blog, and what made you want to write about outgrowing friendships.
Sure. So, first of all, thanks so much for having me, and hello to everyone. So, I am Sara, and I'm the founder of Mod Girl Style, and I create content around beauty, wellness, and lifestyle for women that are late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, and that kind of range. I started this because I felt like there was a gap around content for women in this age range. Um, I feel like a lot of content is really geared towards women in their 20s or 30s. And as you get older, things change. And some of the things that worked in your 20s and 30s don't cut it anymore. Youth is now no longer on your side with genes and genetics. And so I also wanted to cut through the noise of trends and talk about things that actually work. There's thousands of skincare products and treatments and supplements and recommendations going on, and I really wanted to narrow that down into things that actually work and quality over quantity, and really talk about intentional living and all the choices that we're making each day, that they're intentional and doing things that are actually going to better our life.
I love that. And I want to say one thing that stood out from your blog is that I feel like you only write and talk about things that you've tried that work. Like everything that I take from your website and that I've tried actually works. I see results and it's science based. It's not like a fad from TikTok. It's very authentic. You're one of the most organic blogs that I've read in a very long time.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being here and talking about this really important topic. So, a little background: Sara and I wrote two blog articles that go hand in hand on the topic of friendship. So, Sara wrote about some of that emotional impact of outgrowing friendships, a tough part about friendships ending, and then I wrote about a little bit more tactical about how to make new friends as an adult because as we get older our friendships evolve and our needs change. And so I thought it'd be important to maybe start off by talking about why adult friendships are so different. Why does it feel different? Why is it so much harder? We're in a different place when we're adults. We're no longer in a place where it's easy to make friends, right? You're not sitting in a classroom talking to your girlfriend sitting next to you. You have to be really intentional and you have to put in a lot of effort. And sometimes as an adult with other responsibilities, it's a lot harder to do that. And I think that's kind of like that very first challenge. And then you feel like, is this even going to pay off? I don't know if you've experienced that, Sara. For you, when did you see a shift in your friendships?
I think getting into your late 20s and early 30s, because that's when people start, when you're not quote unquote going out. Remember like the early 2000s, you had like going out outfits and all that stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
like, even though college was over, it was like you might have you and your friends all had jobs now, but you were still partying on the weekends. At least like that was my life. Maybe not everyone did that, but I would meet people all the time from like being at the bars and things like that. And there were still all these social things going on. But once you get into like your later 20s, people start getting engaged and getting married, and then they start having kids, and like people's careers start escalating too. You start advancing in your career and life starts happening to people. even outside of that, like parents are getting older. Like there's just a lot of things start going on. And you also outgrow some of those things. Like I don't even drink anymore. So I have like no desire to go to the bar drinking. But that is when I started to really, you start to see that like you're not getting introduced to new people. Like you're still friends with the people you had, but the same rate of where I used to meet new girls all the time wasn't happening anymore. Like, do you know what I mean? And like maybe you met a new friend at the workplace or something and you might pick up one here or there, but where are you really meeting people at that?
Exactly. I actually wrote about this. So thank you for the layup because I called this the friendship funnel. So when we're younger, we have school and even like going out in bars, like you're just constantly meeting people, friends of friends in the workplace, but that changes. And then that friendship funnel kind of slows down. And I hate to to compare it to something so cold, but it's kind of like when you're in a sales job, right? I think anybody can somewhat relate to the sales funnel because we've all been part of that before. You need to fill up your leads, right? You need to fill up that friendship funnel to find your people, right? To find the people that you click with. And then as you get older and then that funnel is not being filled, and then you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I have like one person to call. I read a statistic when I was doing research for the blog that 53% of women only have one or two friends they could call if they really needed to. And that made me sad. And it's not about quantity. So please don't get me wrong here. When I joke about the friendship funnel or this statistic, it's not about having 100 people to call, but it's having a variety of people in your tribe so that you have different experiences with different people because like one person is not going to fill every bucket for you. I like to talk about these different categories of friendship and how has that evolved as you've gotten older? Because I know we want more depth, but then we don't want to put too much pressure on a certain friendship to fill all of those categories in one person, which is why I talk about the need for having a community and a tribe of girlfriends.
Yeah. So when you're talking about the friendship bucket, I do like putting them into buckets. I do have friends that it's like they're really good for certain things or certain topics. But then I also recognize when there's limitations in certain friendships, and I just know don't talk to them about a certain thing because we're just not on the same wavelength in that area, maybe. It's not even necessarily that they're wrong or they're bad or something like that. It's just there's just not synergy there and recognizing that. And I capitalize on where there is synergy for the people that I'm friends with. In my ideal world, I like to be able to be unfiltered and not feel safe in expressing anything I'm like thinking or feeling or going through and things like that. I have some friends that they want to talk about all the beauty stuff like skincare or aesthetic treatments and hair and whatever, wellness, right? I mean, one of my very good friends is not into that stuff at all. Like at all. Like she doesn't care. And she's a very close friend. But we talk about all kinds of other things that are a match. For example, we talk about manifesting. We talk about um relationships, like how to like she's been through a lot with her past relationships, how to identify a toxic relationship and like those kinds of things. Like she has a very good grasp on all of those kinds of things and she even does writing on that stuff. And so I think all of that is really interesting. We also talk about energies a lot. You and I had a conversation earlier about energy and all the thought transmission. She's into all that and I can't talk to everyone about that. They would try to put me in a home, right? So like but like she gets that. She gets that. And we have other things in common too. Um, but I like she's not gonna ask me about like the what laser treatment did you do or what's your skincare routine. She doesn't care. And so recognizing those things, and then also it's like you might have friends that you know from work or some kind of business related opportunity. And so it was based on that. And so that relationship is going to feel a little bit different than with somebody maybe you met them at a party and it was just you know what I mean? Because if it was business first, like it tends to be more professional maybe or more business oriented. It might evolve more into friendship, but there still might be a lens of it that's more on the professional front, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's really important, recognizing each friendship for what it is
Hmm.
and what it adds to your life. Sometimes some friendships will evolve with us and then some won't. And sometimes that chapter in our life closes, right? Like we might have a work friend and we leave the company and that friendship might change just because we're changing. We're changing our geolocation, we're changing our industry, we are changing what are priorities in our life. And some friendships evolve with us and some don't. And I'm not saying that you always have to have, one of those things in common. I love the fact that I have friends that are 15 years younger than me. And I was just talking to you about a friend that I have who is 25 years older than me. You can find alignment with people in different stages of your life. It's really important to recognize when friendship and alignment changes. Because I think that's this hot topic that a lot of people have written to us about, even made comments in our syndicate group,
Yeah.
that our articles really hit a nerve because we have this great friendship with somebody. We have a great relationship, whatever they may look like, whether we align on one topic in life or 15, but then we might be moving on different tracks and then that friendship changes. And sometimes they just naturally shift because of the direction that we're going. And women, we feel guilty about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have an example of maybe when a relationship just shifted and you grew apart.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've seen that, and I have a lot of different examples. Somewhere no one did anything wrong. It's just we're very different. Our interests are very different now, and our priorities are very different, and our lives are just so different that it just organically we grew apart. There was never an argument or a fight. No one did any wrong to the other one. But then I've also had things where it's recognizing there's not alignment in a way. Okay, is this something I wanna keep putting energy into? Because what am I really getting out of it? Like, I think everyone has had that too, where the ones where you just organically grow apart, like, to me, I'm very accepting of that. Um, but the ones where it's like someone is still your friend but you just start to recognize that you're not aligned and things aren't really balanced. I don't know if this is really a good friendship for me, right? Or does it really make sense to continue? You don't even have to do a hard cutoff. I've done like slow fade outs. I don't write them like a breakup text or an HR notice letting them know they've been terminated. Most of the time it's like I've been recognizing a pattern for a while. Here's like the thing I think happens a lot for me. There's something that they do, there's a pattern. I have let it go for a while because I do love them, and there's a bunch of positive stuff too. There's a long history, you have all the nostalgia and all the good times, and you're just like, "Okay, like, yeah, they can be like that." But then what has happened for me is, like, there will be one event that really showcases who they are, and then you can't unsee it or unknow it. Yeah, I can't really do this anymore.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you touched on something, and this is where it gets really tricky or gray area. We evolve and maybe we're in different stages of our lives, but I felt like I have multiple friends where we've been friends for or have known each other for 20 years. And I have friends that we're in completely different places in our life, right? Like I'm pregnant right now, 7 months pregnant with my second child. I'm married. I have all these things in my life that I'm focused on. And I have some friends who don't want kids, never want kids, are very career driven, and I'm super close to them, for example, right? And then I have another friend, when you talk about alignment, who has kids. I've always wanted kids. It just happened later for me in life. So her kids are much older. And I'm going to use this as an example. I thought we would get even closer when I had kids because it gave us like kind of more of commonality. And I was really close to her kids. I would visit her all the time. And right to her kids. We're so close, right? My son is now 2.5 and she's never even asked about him. And it's not a requirement. This is not a tit for tat, but I had this expectation. And then I realized maybe she was only comfortable with a one-sided friendship when I
Mhm.
came to visit. When I ask about her kids, she's not really comfortable engaging in my children's lives. And that's okay. Then I realized, how long has this one-sided friendship been going on? And you kind of have this expectations like, hey, we have the same kind of thing going on, motherhood. I thought we'd connect. And so I think alignment goes into a deeper level. Alignment with our friendship. We don't have to be in the same place in our life, but if we see eye to eye, if we have the same core values, that's where longevity and where you can really stay friends for decades, which is rare and really beautiful. And it can look different, but you can still be friends.
Yeah, so that's a good point too, because it's not like a lot of my friends have completely different lives than me. Like what you just said, like you're married and you're pregnant with your second child. I didn't want to have kids. I've never gotten married. That was never a priority for me. And I've been solely focused on my career and traveling and creative projects, but we still connect even though we don't have some of those other core things in common. And I've also met other women that have the same like a more similar life to me, but at the end of the day, I didn't really connect with them because it like why that person and not that, but like it's the personality or the energies or whatever. And most of my really good friends, like when I think about them, like who they are and what they have going on, like the friend I mentioned earlier, like she's divorced with 3 kids. She has a completely different life than I have, right? And my other friends, most of them are married with kids, the vast majority of them. There's maybe a few. There's a few that aren't. I have two really good ones that are not married and don't have kids. But my especially my friends from back home that I've had for decades, they've been married with kids. They got married in their 20s, you know? Um, and they, like, bought homes and stuff like that, and I remember seeing our lives change even then because once they were getting engaged and getting married, I just remember having conversations with them, and I would be we were in the same place in our careers, and we're talking about, like, what we're gonna be doing, and I was, like, saving money to go on trips that I wanted to go on forever, like, different destinations, and then they're talking about saving up to put, like to redo the backyard and build a fence. Right? Oh, I
Yeah.
remember being, like, in my head, like, "Ew." Like, I can't because and they're telling me, like, the price, "Oh, that's, like, $8,000 or that's $10,000." And I'm thinking about all the trips I could go on and, like, all the things I could do, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
realized, like, how different our lives really were and the priorities because I don't care about a fence, right? But that's
Yeah.
fine because they were buying a house and they were gonna be having kids soon, so of course it all makes sense. But you can see, like, where everything is, like, diverging, is that the right word? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because 'Cause we're all focused on, like, what apartment do I wanna live in? What city do I wanna and also, like, I was very open to moving to different cities like New York and LA and Miami, things like that because I could, right? And they're looking at houses and picking out what kinda, like, fence they want. But here's the thing, I've always noticed this is I've had friends with a variety of backgrounds and different, like, demographic backgrounds with ages. I've had a lot of friends that were 20 years older than me too, some that were younger, some with very different lifestyles and stuff, but there's some kind of common energy where, like, it just works. Like, sometimes having the differences make the friendship more interesting too. Just because someone has the same background as you doesn't mean you're gonna vibe with them.
Exactly. Funny enough, right before we started recording this, my nanny came here, who is 21, just graduated college, and we have the most amazing conversations. And she has so much to teach me. She has such depth to her. She's a very interesting, beautiful human. And she was talking about something the other day, and I can't believe this is coming out of the mouth of a 21-year-old, but it's just so cool to have friends in those different areas. I love what you're talking about, this like a common thread in friendships. And we talked about maybe some misaligned friendships and outgrowing friendships, right? But I want to talk a little bit about recognizing when there's a difficult season versus just a misaligned friendship, because you wrote about that. And that was my favorite section of your entire blog. And that really struck a chord because I've had friendships where we maybe don't talk as much. And I have friends that I cannot talk to for a year, which I've had actually two really close girlfriends. But I went to the East Coast and we met up and we had coffee, and it was like nothing changed. And I love them. I could pick up the phone and call right now. We don't have to talk every day to be connected and for me to feel really close to them. It's just where we are in our lives. We're super busy. But then there's friendships where you don't talk because it's clunky energy, and then is that a difficult season or is that a misaligned friendship? So I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit because that was just my favorite part of the blog.
Just 2 weekends ago, Memorial Day weekend, I went back to Pittsburgh, where I'm from. I'm in Philadelphia now, and I hung out with one of my childhood best friends. She is probably my first friend we ever in my life. Like, we went to preschool together, and she was 1 year ahead of me, though. We went to preschool together, so we were the same age, and we grew up together, and we went to the same grade school, and then she lived down the street from me, and our dads are best friends. And her mom had passed away a couple years ago, but her mom was close with my mom, and our brothers were best friends and were each other's weddings. And both of our names were Sarah. When I think of my childhood, she is literally part of it because we would stay over each other's houses like every night in the summer, like going back and forth and, all of that things that you did in the 80s, building forts and riding bikes all day and like all this stuff. And she is married with kids, and I don't talk to her every day at all. In fact, like, sometimes we've even gone, like, I would say, I don't wanna say years, but not really calling and texting a lot, but it never matters when we do see each other. It's exactly how it always was. It's we both revert back to kindergartners with our silliness and these stupid jokes that we had that we thought were so funny. We were talking about it the other weekend, and, there were, like, multiple phases of life where we weren't super connected, but it, like, doesn't matter, though, and that's one example. Like, you can have friends like that, and I think that's great. And then I've had other friends where okay, this is, like, my kinda, like, 2nd category where they were always a good friend, and then something happened where they were, like, not being themselves anymore, and it's like I knew, like, the specific example I'm talking about was a different friend. She was going through a hard time, she had gone through a bad breakup. She met a new person that I clocked right away as, like, super toxic and, like, this isn't good, but she was in a vulnerable place, and I did voice it to her in a nice way. She was receptive, but she continued to see him, and then long story short, like, she started changing in a way that, like, I didn't even recognize and not in a good way. And when that started happening, I just went ahead and took a step back from her. And I just thought to myself, like, okay, like, one or two things is going to happen. She's going to come. I know this isn't who she is because I have known her literally like since freshman year of college. She's either gonna come out of it and it's gonna go back to the way it was, or she's gonna stay stuck in, like, this, and maybe at the end, we're not gonna end up being friends. But I didn't really believe that that was gonna happen because, like, I just really felt like I knew her, and eventually they did break up, and eventually we reconnected, and then the friendship was fine. There was, like, it was, like, a year to a year and a half almost of things got rough and we weren't so close, and she was saying some things, I'm like, "Who are you?" You know what I mean? And we sent then after eventually, like, we talked and, like, it's like that never happened now. Like, do you know what I mean? That was a long time ago. It
Mhm.
was more than 10 years ago now that that happened. But, like, that was someone, like, I believed the good in her, and I believed that it was gonna turn around. Now, if she would have stayed that way for, like, 5 years, the friendship would have ended, I'm sure. You know what I mean? But it did so to me, that was like a rough patch, and it was based off something she was going through. It wasn't personal, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's my best friends to this day. Um, and then, like, kind of the 3rd category, and this is, like, really who the group I'm talking about in the blog, is where it's someone you've been really close with. Like, normally it's someone you consider like a best friend kind of a deal, and you start to realize that it's, like, very unbalanced and that they're not like, in my case, it's like, you know what? They're not really actually there for me. Like, when like, I'm always there for them when something happens, but they're never there for me, and realizing that I can't actually call them if there's a problem or, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And that it's not, what's the reciprocal? Is that the word?
Yeah.
Reciprocal? And
Yeah.
um, and thinking about like, there's so many scenarios, and, like, you look back and you're like, "Yeah, there was a trend of this for a while. You let it go. And then eventually, like, for me, like, something big happens, and you're like, "Oh, okay. Yeah."
Yeah. And to add to that, what I've learned, I'd say in the last just 5 years, it could be a big thing, good or bad. So I've had friends who were really there for me, like they'd love to talk if something bad was going on. But the
Yeah.
minute great things are happening, I'm pregnant, I'm getting married, I'm so excited, I bought a house. There are friends who are super silent, who are not comfortable with you doing well. That has been a huge wake up moment for me in my life where like, why can't you be happy for me? This is so amazing. And it's radiant silence. Or that's been hard too. And that ties into one of the topics I wanted to touch on, which is a perfect segue about life events. And I don't want to talk about just motherhood because I'm a mom. But to your point, something big in your life could happen. Could it be a job change? Could it be a parent that's ill or
Mhm.
yourself is going through a health issue, something like that? I think major life transitions really reveal whether that friendship is mutual or was that relationship just carried by one person, to your point?
So the one thing that I have heard, so, now being 44, I've had a couple friends now that have had one of their parents die. And what every single one of them has told me has been that they didn't realize that they were gonna lose friends when one of their parents died. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, at this point now I understand because I keep hearing it so much is like, they're like, "I had friends, like, other best friends and close people that never checked in on them and were not there for them at all." And then on TikTok, I've seen multiple, like, random people making these videos, like, the one thing I didn't know when my parent died is how many friends I was gonna lose because a lot of like, that's a really common one. Now I still have both of my parents, but now I'm kinda like, now I know, like, that might happen, like, eventually, you know? It's like
It's
because
a great example.
they get uncomfortable, like, with
Yeah.
someone else's grief, and it's like and all like, you just have to say you're sorry, and you just kinda have to be there, like, you don't even have to do anything, no one's expecting you to have, like, words to fix anything, like, I'm the kind of friend who will no matter how bad it is, I will just sit there with you. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I won't like, nothing's gonna happen to any of my friends that it would scare me away, like, "Oh, I can't be friends with them because," like I mean, when you hear about true tragedies, like, someone's entire family is killed in a car accident, like, 5 people are dead. You can't even actually imagine what that would be like because it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
I will sit with you through anyone, like through anything. Like, do you know what I mean? And but not everyone has that ability, even for smaller things. They get uncomfortable with someone who's grieving or someone who had something really bad happen and maybe they're depressed and they're not themselves. And like it's like, yeah, I guess like she's like I mean, I actually know someone who the girl a girl, her father died. This was a couple years ago, and she was an acquaintance to me. I wasn't super close with her. I sent her a text and said I was sorry to hear about it, but we weren't like good friends or anything. But I was friends with one of her friends. Okay. So I asked this friend the next time we met up for lunch, like, oh, how is she doing? Cause like I knew her dad had died, like, how's she doing? And my friend goes, she like rolled her eyes and she goes, I don't know. She's grieving right now. So I don't know. We'll see.
Goodness!
So the way I read that was like, I'm just putting her on the shelf right now. Whenever she's
Yeah.
back in the room, we'll see what's going on. But I'm like, "Oh my god."
Wow. You can't make it up, right? These are real
Yeah,
things that happen.
for me too. Like, do you ever have a friend that, like, has a lot of crises going on and, like, you're always there, and then, like, when you have a crisis, like, they're not really there? Like, and you're like, "Oh, remember when you were texting me at 1 in the morning having a mental breakdown?" I'm always the person, like, leaving a detailed voice note, validating them and you know what I mean? And then,
Yeah.
like, I don't have time for that anymore. I had a big surgery a couple years ago, and I had a friend who is more than capable of coming to visit me. She never came to see me. She never checked in on me, never offered to come and bring me anything. She knew I was bedridden for like 3 weeks, can't drive, can't do anything. For 6 weeks, I really was like stuck in the house and offered absolutely nothing. She did send like one text that was like, I hope you're feeling okay or something like that. But there was no real check-in, and I was like, "This is that was like like for me, that was like it. I was like,
And I'm sure that there were a million times in that friendship when
you
you
were.
drove to her, where you did X, Y, and Z for her. And I wanna make this really clear, friendship is not about a tit for tat.
No.
But
Mm.
when your capacity changes, you're not no longer able to carry those one-sided friendships, and that's when it's highlighted, "Oh, okay, it's okay for me to drive 2 hours to you or an hour and a half," or whatever it is, I don't know, I'm throwing out a
Yeah.
number, "and I can do X, Y, and Z, but when I need you and I had a major surgery at a young age because 'cause you're very young, you can't bring me chicken soup or come watch a movie with me?"
And it's
That's heartbreaking.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned the driving thing because it was always like that too. Like I always, because we lived like 40, 45 minutes apart. And I always was the one that went to her. And I'm like, oh, she has kids. She's busy. Like I was always the one doing that. And I was even okay with that because the location we met, it was like a good location. Like that's fine, really. But there were so many examples like that. And it's like the one time where it's like, yeah, I can't do any of that. Like I'm literally bedridden. And it was just like crickets. And I was just like, and I just did like this. I'm like, I'm just not investing in this anymore. I didn't write like a nasty gram and like telling her, whatever. I was just like, I'm just not investing in this anymore.
That's why friendships can really hurt,
Hmm.
sometimes even more than breakups or romantic breakups, because with a breakup, you can lay it all out, right? But with a friendship, you're just like, okay, noted. And you have to take a step back. And then it's just a slow burn, it's a slow sting that where you have to process. And sometimes you think about it. And I'm sure that there are times where later down the road you thought about her and you're like, man, how come she didn't value our friendship enough to just come over to check in? I'm sure it's come up. I know that happens for me. I think we women, and a lot of our listeners are women, we kind of like mull things over and you're like,
Yeah.
why is it this way? And then I think that's why they can be deeply painful, because then it's tied into, when you replay that history, the emotional safety you thought you had with this person that's no
Hmm.
longer there because you were carrying the relationship.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think like no one, I think people are starting to talk about this because like that's what made me write the blog is seeing people on TikTok say, no one talks about the pain of like when a friendship ends. Everyone talks about breakups, right? Like romantic breakups, right? Songs are written about it and all that stuff. But like friendship breakups can be worse because and I think the reason that they can be worse is because I think when you get in a romantic relationship with anyone, even if you're super optimistic, there is has to be some level of you that knows that like this may end. Do you know what I mean? Because breakups happen all the time. But when you're friends with someone, like especially if it's a girl you've been friends with for decades and you consider them your best friends, like they're the ones that are there with you through breakups and through job transitions or whatever bad things are going on and the good things. Like they're supposed to be like your ride or die kind of a thing. And you don't expect to break up with a friend. Like it's not
Right.
really on the table. It's like, do you know what I mean? And so I think that's part of it. And also, I just think it's something people don't talk about. Like everyone understands when if like someone's marriage ends or their relationship ends, like they're romantic, like oh yeah, they're really upset. Everyone's like, oh yeah, that's so terrible, blah blah blah. But like I have never been anywhere where someone was like, well, I just had a friendship breakup. Like my best friend and I just broke up. Like I'm just really sad.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone say that, but it is going on. Like
Yeah.
yeah, so um, and like you said, I think you're thinking about all the good times and then you're like, "Well, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe" like, I remember thinking that, "Well, maybe I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater and I'm just focusing on this one thing that I don't like." And, and then you keep accepting unacceptable behavior, right?
Yeah.
And then you get mad at yourself, right? You know what I mean? But then in all these situations, it was never one thing. It was already like 100 things had already happened, right? And then there's like a final thing, and you're just like, yeah, I think I'm at the age now where I'm just like, I don't, you know what? If this is going to require me to decode you, like I'm trying to like Morse code, like, okay, well, you texted me here and then you did like my post, but you didn't wish me happy birthday. But this, and I'm trying to figure it out because you have made it so convoluted for me to really even know. I'm just out. I'm
Yeah.
just out. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm not
Yeah.
sitting there trying to play detective and figure out what the hell your problem is or what you're doing because you're a weirdo. Like, I'm just sorry. Like, I just don't wanna deal with any of this. Like, and I just feel that way across the board with anything, like, anyone I'm dating, even with, like, job situations, like, I've done some interviews where it was like, I'm like, "Listen, I'm not even, like, messing with this." Like, do you know what I mean? I'm just, like, done. And I think that happens in your 40s where you care a little bit less about this stuff, like, too.
Totally. That's one of the beautiful parts of aging and getting a
Mhm.
little bit older. To put a kinda positive spin on that, and I think this is the last, topic we'll touch on because then part 2 is gonna be we're gonna break this up into part 2 where we're gonna talk about then how to make new friends. But the positive spin on all of this is that when you break up with those friends, it makes room for healthier relationships. I had this period of a year or 2 where I had whether I was distant with some friends or I just maybe I decided were no longer serving me, just everything that you just talked about, Sarah, so eloquently. So thank you for that. Then I had this influx of amazing friends in my life. Yesterday, I'll just touch on this. Yesterday, I had a friend come over my house who so let me back up for a second. So, I brought up the example of a friend I've been friends with for 20 years who has kids and who's never once asked me how I'm doing in my pregnancy, not postpartum, has never asked about my friend. This is one of my oldest friends. Just does not care. And that's okay. That's her deal. It's just not what I expected, so it's on me and my emotions. Then yesterday, I had a friend come over who is a really successful local businesswoman here. She owns her own business and she cleared out her Saturday to come over to my house, take care of my son and get help get my house ready for my baby, for my next baby. She did laundry, she was changing my son's diaper, she was folding clothes, she was organizing, she was doing all of this and it was so sweet and we had the best conversation. She's somebody who I could talk to about anything. And I'm just like, wow, this is such a cherished moment that she would do this. And it's really hard for me to accept help, which she knows. So she kind of like forced it. And she also knows that about me. So she was like helping me break through that. We just had this amazing day. And I thought, wow, what a cherished friendship and great person in my life. I'm so thankful. I realize when I get hung up on the unhealthy relationships I've had, it really takes away my energy and my love into these new relationships. And it doesn't have to be new, but like new or existing relationships that help add to my life. It was such a great reminder. This is what it's supposed to be. That's what I really hope we leave with anybody reading our blog or listening to this today. I'm not saying go cut off any toxic friend,
Yeah.
fire all your friends, just like
Yeah.
it's done. But really, when you reevaluate who is good friend to you and who is in your circle that's adding to your life in whatever capacity that may be, personally, professionally, a mom friend, a great neighbor, to then make space for those healthier relationships.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's like anything, when you clean out your closet and clean up your house and get things out, like, a lot of times that's when like opportunities open. Every time I do a major clean out, I normally end up moving shortly after, even though I wasn't planning it. But I think it's also one thing I don't want to forget to mention is friends where like the friendship does die and goes away. I think it's really important though not to have a lot of anger and be, like, sinister, like, "F them" kind of a thing, because how I see it is the friendship did serve me at one time and vice versa, right? Like, I met them for a reason. If I was best friends with you for 20 years or 15 years or whatever it was, and we were that tight, that wasn't a mistake.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a mistake. It's just it's changed now, and now I look back at it as like, I learned some things from them. I had a great time with them and being grateful the one person I'm talking about, like some of my funniest stories. I mean, I have two ex friends like that where the funniest stories that I have, like, some of the stuff we've shared in voice notes, they're not going to be named here, but like
Yeah.
is with them, and it's like the most epic moments was with them, and I don't regret any of that, and it still makes me laugh and
Yeah.
smile, and, you know, I learned something from them, I'm sure they learned something from me. I don't wish any of them I want them to do great. Do you know what I mean? I'm not mad. I'm genuinely not mad. Maybe, like, in certain moments, like, I'm like, "Why did they do that?" or "Why didn't they do that?" But this isn't about being angry and resentful. I don't feel resentful towards them. It's just more like
Right.
accepting, and if you think about it, the way the world works and how change happens, it's probably kind of unrealistic to think that all these people that you've ever been close with are gonna come with you till your whole life, right? Life is I saw someone on TikTok saying, like, life is like a train. Like, from the time you're born to when you die, it's a train and you're going. Some people, they're getting off at different point they're coming on at different points and getting off at certain points, and there's only a few that will be with you for the entire literally for the entire ride. And that
Exactly.
is just the reality. And once you look at it like that, it takes the emotion out and it just, like, becomes logical to me. And it's
Yeah.
like, that makes sense, you know?
I love the train analogy. That's beautiful and a great place for us to wrap up.
Yep.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining us and having this conversation. And we're going to have part 2. We're posting it right after this. And that is to get into the tactical of how do you make new friends as an adult when your life shifts, when you have a lot on your plate and your priorities shift. If you like this episode, make sure to share it with your friends. Make sure to subscribe so you get a notification for the next one. And we thank you for being here. Have a great night.
Thank you.